feel like I'm at a very interesting point in my journey where nothing's necessarily wrong, but I'm grieving a lot. And I think that's like, it makes sense because of the state of the planet right now. Like, just grieving what we've neglected, what we've lost, what we were deprived of. But, like speaking from a more personalized experience, like me, like I feel like this recovering people pleaser arc is bringing up a lot of grief because there's versions of myself that I kind of zoomed past, where it's like I was embodying those things in like heats of moments and during a time of my life where like I was genuinely going through like some of the hardest intervals, like holistically, like physically I was ungrounded, therefore mentally and emotionally there's a lot of ungroundedness that existed in those versions of myself. And I was very flighty. I was very kind of just like tunnel visioned, so to speak. I see it as. And I feel like the grief comes from the versions of myself that felt free before having to face the reality of things, because I think the truth of the matter was kind of facing my own toxicity and my own shortcomings, despite how much I chose to overcompensate in the ways that I did, of just like being happy, being the light in the room, striving to be the light in the room, right? Not necessarily saying that's always how I was received, because I'm not in control of that, but my intent in my head was just like, nobody has to know about the dark things that I have to deal with, like say at home or lack thereof, right? Because I think that was a cycle that was happening since high school, where it was just this very strong essence of overcompensation because of what I lacked. I felt like because I didn't have stable housing, there was a need to kind of like overgive. Like my mom taught us to always be useful, because coming from I feel like overly masculine feminine, or toxic masculine feminine, it was the kind of overcompensation of like, okay, I know that you have to help me in this hard way, so let me show you how much I'm giving, right? Or like it was notions of like, okay, make sure you know how to clean, cook, because when you're in other people's houses, like you're gonna have to like know how to carry yourself, keep yourself small, don't have too many items, don't be messy. Same thing with going outside, kind of being polished so that you're received in a softer way, regardless of the other person's energy field. And I think that I subconsciously adopted that in some of the hardest times of my life, like overgiving in ways that I didn't realize were leaving me really drained, and not being able to communicate that. So coming to that realization, while like just like looking at my life, like damn, I'm like, it's like I'm in a cycle, like I'm without a home again, I'm depending on people, like it's the feeling of not feeling like you don't have anything for yourself. And though like seemingly in relationships that I'm building, I am sensing this happiness, and I'm creating these happy experiences. I didn't realize how unready I was for the not so good experiences in connections. Because not to say that people like haven't like done me wrong, right? Not saying that I'm the whole villain in all of my stories, you know what I mean? But in this specific interval here, we're coming to these realizations of the cycles that I have kept myself in. You know, it's just a wave of unworthiness, as if I detached from the knowing that the happiness was coming from within me, and I instantly went back to that teenager programming of feeling like a burden, because associating other people's energy field, especially when they're negative, as like my responsibility, right? So, you know, when things would get difficult, say with me and a friend, it was kind of like an instant retraction of my energy, like instantly feeling, say, misunderstood, or a really heavy distortion that I couldn't face head on. I just find it really interesting to grieve these different parts of myself that were okay with like overgiving, because though it was subconscious, it brought a lot of the comfort that I feel that I would be craving right now in a different way. So I've been in like a forgiving state because of that. Like I wrote a little bit about it on my Substack, you know, because I shouldn't have expected myself to show up in certain ways because of what I was going through. I think that even the reason of me overgiving was say a cop out or just a coping mechanism. Like laughing used to be a really uncontrollable coping mechanism for me that helped me bypass the pain that I was actually experiencing, you know, to a point where I couldn't see myself clearly. So when I would have certain mood swings where like, damn, like I'm really in like the deep meditation about like why the fuck my life looks like this, you know, or, you know, I'm just not in the mood for certain things in whatever ways. There was such a strong polarity in the way that I treated myself, and me kind of releasing people, places, and things during that interval, and fully devoting myself to my crowd, because I feel like that's what it was. Like that's what Source was showing me. Like I was doing like affirmation magic, and I would write a note and I'd leave it in my bag, and like literally by the end of the week my whole entire life would fucking change, and I'd find that note that would literally explain like, oh shit, like I literally asked for this, you know what I mean? And though it wasn't in the ways that I thought it would show up, I resonated with it as necessary at those times. I resonated with my reaction being necessary because of my, how do I say it? Like it was like a it's just the kind of unworthiness I feel like, especially when it comes to like people. Like I couldn't tell my energy from others' energy in a way, and there was a lot of me trying to take myself back, you know, and not be a burden to people. You know, I don't think that I was clear enough with my own self and what I needed in connection, so I wasn't able to I wasn't able to communicate that to people, you know. And my art has just been a whole journey of me clearing my conscience, is how I see it. Like all the videos that I make, even this one, like it's me making sense of things for myself. And I don't think I wasn't always able to do this as eloquently as I'm doing it now for myself. You know, and I had those different outlets that were there, And I think that's why I kind of just fell into them. Like I honestly just detached from people, places, and things, and devoted myself to my art because that was the only thing that made sense. And if people around me couldn't understand that, like say if it was about something interfering with my filmmaking or something interfering with one of my businesses in some kind of distorted way, like I just couldn't deal with the friction that came with that because my businesses and my art are were my senses, and I guess they still are. That's why I was saying that at first. They are my senses of stability that I've created for myself to make my currency, like make a name for myself. So it's like I couldn't deal with the conflict that came with things possibly fucking that up in whatever ways or distracting me from it in whatever ways. Like I feel like I was too dysregulated to even like understand why I would even feel the anger that I felt in whatever moments. Like I feel like that's also another thing too, like that especially my feminine connections are teaching me right now, like me being more confident in like coming towards each other with conflict, and also being ready to receive that in whatever ways are necessary, because I work with a lot of goddesses, or it's a goddess led entity. So you know I think that with us exercising our accountability checks and just holding each other accountable and being ready for ourselves to be held accountable, I think has bred such a beautiful environment for me, because you never know when energy is going to shift. You never know who's going to feel what way about anything. And I don't want to be and I never wanted to be such a harsh person when it came to somebody else fucking up, or somebody else like kind of like being a little bit weird in whatever way. Like I'm not saying that shit has to be the end of the world, but those times where I was dysregulated, it dead ass felt like it, bro. It dead ass felt like it, and I did not know how to fucking deal with that shit, bro. And I'm grieving those parts of myself that kind of like before those things, like how shit was before I had to like really stand on my boundaries, because I knew me standing on my boundaries wouldn't be taken well, or I was anticipating that not being taken well. And I didn't know repair in relationships as well as I do now. And I hope that with, the connections that I'm anchoring now, and, whoever it is that I'm meant to be in partnership, divine collaboration with moving forward, like, I'm just manifesting people who are able to kind of like, not kind of, but just really see themselves clearly, see me clearly, because I see myself so clearly now. And it's just like such a forgiving like energy. Like I'm forgiving myself, forgiving those people, and sending different experiences and instances energetic love, because I know that like I've been really really harsh because of my dysregulation, and that's okay. That's okay. I don't need to feel bad about that. I don't need to like beat myself up because of that. And whatever's real will always find its way back, you know? So, yeah.